Now, coming off of the last chapter, the results that we see here was definitely within our expectations because Oda has a thing of ending Zoro and Sanji's fights very close to each other. So here we come to see the resolution of the battle between King and Zoro. And here we come to see that the victor is Zoro and King is completely out of the battle and is lost consciousness. Now again, with Zoro and King's fight, this was something that Oda has shown time and time again, in which Zoro's battles always end quickly once he's found a resolution, because sword fights, unlike blows, have more potential damage, right? Hence why a lot of sword fights ends very quickly. So there isn't a lot of accumulative damage when it comes to these types of battles. It's usually one final attack that completely takes off the health bar of the other person, and that's what happened here. Now I will say that the only thing that I did want to see more wasn't necessarily from Zoro, but more so from King, because I feel like he was a bit underused in terms of his potential, you know, his lineage, the ancient devil fruit that he has, and his fighting style. I feel like there could have been more things to him. For some reason, it turns out that none of these guys were awakened, you know, even though they are commander class Zoan characters. It would seem that the more important aspects when it came down to the calamities was what they had other than their devil fruit ability. So with Queen, it was his ability of science and him being sort of a cyborg, and with King, it was his lineage, the Lunarians. So Oda didn't really dive into the ancient Zoan class that much in this arc at all. But again, I'm fine with the resolution. I just wanted to see more from these battles. But overall, Zoro vs King, easily one of the best fights in the series, hands down. Now moving on, we come to see a flashback with King and Kaido, in which King is having a conversation, and here he makes a comment saying that he thinks that Kaido is JOYBOY. And again, with King, given that his lineage seems to have played a very important role in history, it would seem that he's also invested into the legends of this world, and perhaps the world that Kaido is trying to build is in line with Kaido becoming JOYBOY, which is very interesting because now we know that this is something that Kaido was aware of for a very long time, probably during his time with Rocks, right? And it would seem that in this flashback that he doesn't even think that he could be JOYBOY, and then later on when he was talking to Luffy, it's almost like he tried to become JOYBOY but couldn't, as he told Luffy that you couldn't become JOYBOY either. So again, it's a lot deeper with Kaido here. Initially, Kaido came off as this drunken guy that seemingly just wanted to kill himself, but there's obviously more to his character, and we're seeing it here, and I honestly cannot wait for this flashback that we're going to get, because that's going to be important, what Kaido wants and his ambitions, and also the effects that individuals like Rocks had on him. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to. Now, as usual, I would appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video and hit the bell if you want to get notified for future content on this channel. Now, in the previous chapter, I mentioned how King had a very similar beginnings to Zoro and Luffy, right? How they encountered each other, and here we come to find out that King also had a promise that he made to Kaido that was essentially similar to what Zoro made to Luffy, right? In which King states that he would never lose until Kaido would become the king of pirates. Obviously very similar to Zoro saying that he would never lose till he surpasses Mihawk. So with King and Zoro, there's obviously some sort of parallel that you can make between the two of them, and honestly it makes the fight a lot more symbolic than I initially thought, because King is probably the first right hand that we've seen that is extremely focused on the ambition of their captain, right? Perhaps because the end goal is also something that he wishes to happen, given his lineage being victims of the world government. And so the world that King felt like Kaido was creating was something that would destroy the things that he hated. So very interesting things here that we learned about not only just King but also Kaido, as it would seem that he's somewhat affiliated with the title of JOYBOY based on King's perspective. Now moving on to Zoro's side of things, I do want to say that Zoro is looking like an absolute monster. There's this one panel of him in the air flexing his Conqueror's coated blades, saying that if this is what it takes, then I will become the king of hell. That was amazing. Just another badass Zoro quotes for the books. Now initially I thought Zoro was going to be passed out from this battle, but it would seem that he still has enough strength, because we do see him using Claire Lance that he used before to get back on Onigashima, and here he might have more things to do given that the situation is still far from over, right? Especially considering the two strongest people on the island are still active, and if they don't win these battles, then everything would be a loss, right? So we do know that Sanji told Zoro to check up on him later, after his battle with King. So I would assume that Zoro could be heading towards Sanji right now. Now, whether anything is going to happen there, I don't think so, because we don't have time for that right now. There's only a limited amount of time before Onigashima potentially lands on the Flower Capital. So I don't know if Oda is going to invest any time in something interesting happening between Sanji and Zoro. So I either see Zoro heading back to protect Robin, going to support Law and Kid, or heading towards Kaido. Or it might just be a thing where he gets on the island and then he just falls down from exhaustion. A similar case to Sanji, because we do know that he's basically running on meds right now. So we'll see how things play out for him. Now, moving on to Yamato's side of things, we come to see that she is still on the run, eagerly trying to reach the explosive rooms, or the explosive cache in which all of the explosives are being kept, in order to stop any sort of explosions from going off if the island does land on the Flower Capital. It was also mentioned here that even if Kaido is defeated, the flame clouds are going to disappear and then Onigashima would fall regardless. So this is something that Yamato has to do regardless of what happens to minimize the potential damage. So she's trying to get there before Kinyamon's manifestation triggers anything. Now, I would imagine that there has to be a lot of explosives in there, so I'm wondering how she's going to get rid of it, right? Is she just going to throw it off the island, or how is that all going to play out, right? Perhaps her abilities plays a part here, so again, we don't necessarily know, so we'll see. Now, Momo, on the other hand, is still holding on to Kaido's flame clouds, which is helping to some extent, but again, once those clouds disappear, the island is going to come crashing down, and even if there isn't any explosives, it is still going to do a lot of damage in the Flower Capital. So Momo has to come up with something new before that happens. So we'll see where he takes that. Now, of course, as we all expected, Okiku is still alive, which isn't exactly surprising because I think we all saw this coming, right? Again, I've always said this about all of the Scabbards, that these guys will only die after they have seen the dawn, because that's something I think absolutely needs to happen before any of them dies. Till then, every single Scabbards will remain alive, either indefinitely or something happens towards the end of the arc. I'm not sure, right? But here we come to see a scene with Usopp saving Okiku and Kinemon. It would seem that they are very injured and cannot move as of right now, and so Usopp, for the time being, is taking care of the enemies. Now, Usopp mentions something very interesting here, in which he states that he doesn't get why these samurai are obsessed with honor and committing seppuku. And he essentially tells them that they have to keep going because it would be a waste for them to die here after coming this far. And that it isn't just enough to fight in the raid, you also have to win, and that they have to keep living to see the end result of what happens. And so we also have Izo also saying that if they truly believe in Luffy, then you have to live on. And again, I did mention this several times when it comes to the Scabbards dying, right? Is that I feel like all of them have to see the dawn take place before passing on, because if they die here not knowing the outcome of what actually happens, that would technically be classified as a tragic death, because they wouldn't be able to pass on peacefully knowing that there is a possibility that they could have failed. And seeing the outcome of achieving Odin's dream, I feel like, is a very important moment given the roles that the Scabbards have played so far, for them to finally witness the end goal that Odin wanted after these 20 years. That is a scene that I think needs to happen for all of these Scabbards. We also have to realize that Kinemon's wife is also waiting for him, and if you guys remember, he hasn't seen her yet. So I think Kinemon for sure isn't dying. Now here we get a few brief scenes with what is happening elsewhere on the island. Now on the third floor, we see that the best fight is currently taking place, and that is Fukurokuju versus Raizo. That is still happening, and they are apparently in some sort of deadlock in which both of them have used some sort of paralysis jutsu on each other. So it would seem that a test of endurance is taking place, because the fire is also spreading in that room. On the second floor, we have Orochi fangirling over Komurasaki as usual. Not sure what's going to happen here, but I do think that Kyoshiro is going to intervene or make his appearance very soon, as he is the one Scabbard that we haven't seen for a very long time. I think it's been half a year now. Actually, it might be even more than that, but Kyoshiro should make his appearance very soon. In the second basement, we come to see that X-Drake has been defeated by the CP0 members, as well as one of the giant lines, and as usual, Apu, being the rat that he is, always makes it out somehow. So again, when it comes to the CP Zoro, we do see that these guys are pretty powerful as they took down X Drake, but we do see that he is bleeding to some extent. But taking out X Drake definitely shows that these guys are very powerful, so I wonder what's next for them. It is also interesting that they mentioned that they need to get ready in case the alliance somehow pulls a win, because if that happens, that would essentially change everything to the point where this era of the Yonkos might end here. Because again, if you take out two emperors, there's going to be a power vacuum of individuals coming out of the woodworks trying to take power for themselves. So it's going to be absolutely crazy after Wano. The world will most likely be in chaos, and this definitely makes a lot of sense given Oda's statement about Shanks making a move soon, as he is sort of the person that mediates things, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to achieve it this time, as the struggle of power is just going to be something that he cannot control. So I could see him engaging Blackbeard somehow, some way, and that's potentially how we leeway into that situation. But again, if you want to know my thoughts on what happens after Wano, I do have a video on that, and I will link it in the description if you guys do want to see that. And finally, we come to the end of the chapter with Luffy versus Kaido, the most anticipated battle of Onigashima, and here it would seem that Kaido and Luffy are enjoying themselves. It feels like they've reached some sort of mutual respect for each other now, because now they're both smiling, they're both laughing, and they state that things are getting good now. I'm honestly getting some Katakuri versus Luffy vibe from this, and this fight is essentially them, attacking each other with Conqueror's coding and seemingly just eating the attacks. It feels like Luffy has a mythical Zoan at this point, because he's eating these attacks just as much as Kaido is eating Luffy's attacks, because it's almost like Kaido's Devilfruit plays absolutely no role in his defense or durability, right? But I guess that's also a testament to Luffy's endurance. But it would seem that Oda has a lot to tackle in this fight, and I definitely cannot wait, especially for the flashback that we're eventually going to get with Kaido, with him and Rocks, and potentially other older generation characters like Whitebeard, Roger, Odin, and potentially even like Marines like Garp. Who knows if they're going to be implemented in this flashback, because we do know that Kaido was captured several times over, and maybe the person that always captured him was Garp, or other admirals at that point in time. There could be a lot of interesting things that could come out of this flashback, right? So we'll see what happens there. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video, subscribe for more One Piece content on this channel, comment down below what you guys think, hit the bell if you want to get notified for future content, and you can follow me on Twitter at FerroSpace. But it is Ferro, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.